Hello and welcome to the Scoutcast, ahead of Gameweek 5 this time around, and it's following a long international break. It's still going on as we're recording as well. Kosovo were 1-0 up against England, incredibly, but I believe they've equalised now. My name is Joe.
My name is Neale.
And my name's Az.
Welcome everyone. Neale, what's coming up in the show?
Yeah, well, we are going to have some wildcard chat. I believe one of us has deployed a wildcard card this week. We're going to talk about how we're going to plan to shoot up the rankings, in theory. We're going to discuss the key player, team and talking points again from the community. And we're going to finish off with advice on the best teams for clean sheets. And I'm going to be revealing my differential. And we're going to talk about our Game Week 5 plans as well.
Okay, so yeah, lots coming up in the show. I put a team up on the screen already, just a little teaser for a bit later. But let's get to the Scoutcast pick, and we're going to go and have a look at Game Week 4. We're going to cast our minds back. It was red arrows all round. We won't, go into detail about Game Week 4 too much. But Neale, you did the best out of us, 58. I guess that was a round average. A 3-5-2. Success, I would say. But red flags are mounting up. Let's have a look at your team and, what went right and wrong.
Do you know what? I haven't seen that team on the screen there. I've totally forgot I played Mason Greenwood. Deliberately. He didn't just come off the bench. I went out of my way to play him. I don't have many chop options, to be honest. So a lot went right, I suppose. 58 was pretty good in terms of sort of scouts, leagues like mods and cons and things like that, because we all got similar setups, I think. Overall, as you say, about average, and I did actually get a red arrow, as many of us did last week. But I was fairly happy, given a lot of my contemporaries were sort of scrabbling around in the 40s and 50s and that. But pretty happy, really. My forward line is something I'm addressing medium term. Andoni is obviously going to become someone a lot better and someone who's still in the country.
That'd be nice.
Who's not in Galatasaray. Yeah, so he was just a placeholder while I moved cash around.
It's hilarious he got sold. I mean, he kicked someone in the back of the leg before the match. He got sent off, and then they were like, "Yeah, you're gone, mate."
Well, he started Game Week 1, didn't he?
Yeah.
Wasn't he up front? I think I thought he was going to play more of a role. I got him in because I didn't want anybody going down in price. So if I got one of the more widely owned options at 5 million, I thought, well, I might suffer a price drop. Someone like Jordan Neale, who's since gone on to establish himself in the team and score a couple of goals. But yeah, I'll talk about my plans later on. Whether it'll be this week or next week, it'll be Andoni out for Ashley Barnes. It requires a hit this week, and I don't think Brighton away is necessarily that good a fixture. I might do it. It depends on how many more red flags I pick up. I've already got 2. And then Greenwood's obviously not really playable on a regular basis. A couple of Andoni needs to go pronto. Walker Peters and Lamella need to go medium term, if not before then. And then probably the only other fire I'm fighting is when, rather than if, Zinchenko was going to start becoming a rotation risk. So other than that, I think I'm fairly settled with that setup at the moment.
No wild card being deployed.
No wild card
No.
yet. A lot of red flags, but sounds like you're on track.
You're not going to let that go, are you, Joe?
No, when I start seeing 2 in a team, I think, oh, that's too many for my liking. But
particularly when one isn't going to turn clear anytime soon.
Especially when one's not in the country, not even on loan to another team in the country. He's just gone. But yeah, Potter's being ruthless, isn't he? Licardia as well's gone, who's next? Az, you're next, but hopefully Potter won't come along and send you off to some far place. Let's have a look at your team. You are another with 3-5-2. Is this a new big at the back? Big in the middle, perhaps? Yeah.
I mean, it just made sense to me at the start of the season to go midfield, because I didn't think there was that many strikers who were going to do well, but it looks like actually there are some sort of emerging now with Pukki and Haller and Abraham and people. So no, it might be something I'll consider switching back up to 3. But the problem with only having 2 up front is you have to have a player like Wickham or Greenwood or someone or Andoni, whereas
or
at
both.
least if you're a real maverick. But if you go in midfield with a 4.5, you can have someone like Dendoncker or Cantwell or someone like that. So it's something I'm thinking about. I went a bit rogue this week. I decided to take an 8-point hit.
Okay.
And the kind of the general consensus when I unveiled my 8-point hit was, where's Aguero? Where's De Bruyne? Why have you not bought in any of these players? Why have you bought in Ceballos and not any of these players? But the way I looked at it was, I bought in Haller, or Haller, as he should be called, because he's French, as I learned about 5 minutes ago. And I bought in Mason Mount for Martial and Jota. So -4, good move. I thought, delivered straight away. I then looked at my team and I saw Trossard, and I thought, he's got City away, and I want an Arsenal player for their run. And I actually thought Ceballos would get, playing in the derby. I thought he's going to start that game. I thought there's more of a chance of him doing something in this game than Trossard. So I thought I'd just take the hit now rather than do it, this week or next week or something. And he didn't start. It's a shame. He came on, he looked really lively. I'm really happy with him going forward. We're going to talk about Arsenal later, but I'm really happy with Ceballos going forward. So it was a -8. It wasn't a complete disaster, and it's meant I haven't got to use my wild card. So I'm actually quite happy with my moves.
Okay. So it's like a slow, drawn-out, hitty type wild card over a period of time. But of course, you get your wild card to use it another time, perhaps near Christmas.
Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? I mean, you don't really ever know the best time to play it. It just felt like I didn't really have that many. I thought once I got rid of Martial and Jota, my team's actually looking sort of all right. And if I think with your team, Joe, I think it was pretty needed because you took some pretty big risks at the start of the season. Whereas because I've kind of played it sort of relatively safe, it meant that it was a bit less pressure to use it. But I don't know. I mean, I'm probably going to take another hit this week. So that's going to be a 12-point hit over 2 weeks. And then you kind of think, well, should I just have wildcard? Who knows?
Yeah, I think 12 points, 12-point hit starts to get to should I wildcard territory. 8 is definitely isn't. 16 is like, just for God's sake, use your wildcard, man. But yeah, 12 is a dicey time. So, well, here's my team for Game Week 4. Now, as Child in the last Scoutcast and Breakfast Club, I said it was going to do badly. In fact, one of the people commenting said, that looks like a 40-point team to me. Well, 3 better, 43, but they were very close. I did think it would be about that, though. I got Mountain for Martial, and Jamie Vardy completely saved me as well. As I'll talk about in my wildcard a bit later, a lot of the 50-50 calls, Robertson over Alexander-Arnold, Coleman over Luca Dean, they're just not paying off. I'm not happy with the bulk of that team, really. And Vardy has been my sort of KDB replacement up to now, and he's been fantastic the last 2 games. I think we've said in this Scoutcast, he's a stat buster. It doesn't matter how many shots he's getting. He's very clinical and he can punish a weak defence. And we knew he was facing a weak defence in Bournemouth, and of course he plays Sheffield United as well. And he's got tough fixtures coming up. I'm fully expect him to score in some of them, but I don't know if he's going to be racking up braces. That's my bet anyway. I'm going to be betting that there's another player better than Vardy who's around the 9.5 mark, but more of that a bit later.
I wonder who that could be.
I won't neatly segue to the next subject first, but before we do, we got any rough with the smooths from Game Week 4 before we move on to Game Week 5?
We do indeed. Just before we do move on, though, I would just like to say yes to the double Liverpool defence that I forgot to mention just now. And that one's for David, because he's been so smug, and I'm so glad they finally delivered for me.
Harsh words.
And he's not even here, so it feels even better. Right, so apart from that, so smooths. Yeah. So let's get these out of the way, because we've all had a rubbish game week and no one wants to hear about people doing well. So Mr. GRV, he had Sterling, Kevin De Bruyne and Aguero captain, and had Vardy.
Okay.
on his wild card. I don't know what the rest of his team's like, but 86 points, up from 3.1 million to inside the top million. So pretty bad starting point, but I mean a 2.1 million rise in ranks, pretty good. Wally Banter bought in Aguero for Kane and captained him. Good move. Shirtless went for a cheeky De Bruyne captain.
Yeah.
So when we were all going for Sterling, he went for De Bruyne. And this is one I really like. Sparby, Joshua Lee Waldridge, and Jonathan Brown. Not one Liverpool defender, not 2 Liverpool defenders, triple Liverpool defence for their clean sheet against Burnley. Beautiful.
Okay, that's smooth.
That That is pretty smooth.
Reckless, foolish, but indeed smooth.
God, when it delivers though, it's pretty nice. So rough. So HY Liverpool, he got rid of Robinson. Callum Robinson brought in Cantwell. Like probably a pretty good move because Robinson hadn't delivered and Cantwell was. And then obviously Robinson delivered 11 points. And what the hoof did Robinson to Mount, which such a sensible move, like to do the upgrade and just didn't pay off. And this is a pretty bad one. So Pompel, he logs in on Saturday and he sees a very strange score for his captains. He sees Sterling's got 9 points. And he's like, how can a captain get 9 points? He's accidentally pressed the triple captain button, hasn't he?
Do you know what? My experience of triple captain, though, 3 points, I think, well, that's a success. Because you could end up with perhaps Sané and 1 point return and end up with 3 points.
Yeah, well, it still beats my Kane when I think he got 1 point when I triple captain in a double game week. That was fun. The last one, Wasp 3000, 35 points for the game week, which is even worse than you, Joe.
Yeah.
And he blames Pookie. He says he's ruined him now.
Okay.
So he probably has.
Okay.
Well,
let's move on to Game Week 5. As usual, we look at the player, the team, and the talking point that the community is asking us questions about. And the player is a sort of a player, and some of the players that he affects around him is KDB. And I've called him Captain KDB for this segment as well. And KDB and other premiums. Lots of questions about the best captain to choose from this week, particularly because Man City and Liverpool both have great fixtures. Aguero, Sterling, Salah, among the most popular choices. But is it time perhaps to consider KDB alongside them? So I've got some very simple stats to read out first, and I'll come to both of your opinion on this. Aguero, 40 points. He is delivered in every match, 2 double-digit returns. KDB just behind, 36 points. He's delivered in every match, 2 double-digit returns. Sterling, who everyone's captaining, 37 points, so very good. 1 blank though, and 1 double-digit return. And Salah, 36 points, 1 blank and 2 double-digit returns. These are quite good for Sterling and Salah. But KDB's right up there with Aguero. And yeah, you mentioned in your Rough with the Smooth Az about people captaining him. And, well, someone has already. Perhaps others will follow as well. I've got some questions here from Rishi. Who is the best captaincy option in a game week like Game Week 5 when City and Liverpool have a great fixture? Could it be KDB? Dylan asks, you hate the essential tag. But to all of us, I guess. But are any of Salah, Mane, Aguero or KDB essential? And here's another word we perhaps hate, coverage. Can Firmino or Mane cover Salah? And FPL Elephant asks, how many hits can we justify to get KDB in? He's that good. He's saying not whether you should take a hit to get KDB in, but just how many can you take to get KDB in? Let's go to you first, Neale. What do you think of KDB in terms of essential status, but also his relationship with other premium assets, strikers and midfielders, and should we be captaining him as well?
I don't know. Just pass on Az. This is the toughest question I think in the entire Scoutcast. There's so much to consider because you're not just comparing players within the same team. You're trying to cross-reference other teams as well. Look at opposition stats. Now this week you got the international break to factor in as well. Salah and Mane are rested. Firmino's coming back late from I think Brazil's playing in the early hours of Wednesday in the USA. De Bruyne and Sterling have both started 2 games over the national break, so there's a lot to consider this week. De Bruyne I've had since game week 1. I mean, I had him start of the season based on probably what I've seen in pre-season in the Community Shield. The fact that I think people may be a bit not short-sighted is the wrong word, but understandably cagey about what happened last season because there was like 5 separate injuries there, long periods on the sidelines. But previously, before that, he was injury-proof. He was like ever present in the 2 previous seasons before that, just about. And just a reliable deliverer of attack and returns. I think his problem in terms of captaincy is that he's always going to, a bit like Eriksen, he's always going to get more assists than goals. Now, obviously, we like any kind of attack and return, but I think when it's captaincy, we maybe place that extra emphasis on who's going to have the higher point ceiling or who's going to explode on a given game, particularly when the fixtures are good. So prime example, Norwich. Now I see this as a game where Aguero or Sterling could easily get a hat-trick. I see it as a game where De Bruyne could get maybe 2 or 3 assists, which is where my logic lies in a captaincy perspective. Yes, he hasn't blanked this season, but that's essentially how I approach my captaincy decisions, rightly or wrongly. As for
one thing on that though is that KDB could get those 3 or 4 assists, and the goals are shared between Aguero and Sterling, whereas you kind of think that KDB is going to be the one getting all the assists. So that's just another way of looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to just add to what Az was saying there. When we've been looking at the 4 games that we've had so far, we've had games where it's been Aguero doing really well and Sterling has done less well, and the other way round as well. First game of the season with Sterling getting 20 points. But KDB, as Az is saying, he's always there. He's just the guy that assists them. He can't stop assisting.
He is, but he's not going to keep assisting at the rate of more than 1 a game as he is now. So he's got 6 in 5. And he's not going to get the end of the season and have 40 assists. I'm pretty sure of that. So, and the thing is, he relies on mostly orthodox assists. So whereas Sterling gets you fantasy assists as well, through penalty awards, shot rebounds, De Bruyne is heavily reliant on, crosses and things like that, passes. I'm trying to talk people out of getting him basically because I want him as a differential.
That's a vain hope to get KDB into differential status. Now it's your turn to do differentials later on. Are you trying to get KDB in there?
Push him down to below 5%.
Yeah, that might be optimistic. What is he now?
How influential do you think you are, Neil?
Not very.
I was told that as well. I put up a cheeky post telling people not to get McGinn, and then detailing how wonderful he was for Villa. And someone was saying, I was using my influence on Scoutcast. I questioned how influential he thought I was. And in fact, McGinn did indeed start to go down and then actually went up as well. So people were ignoring me completely. They were just confused what I was saying or just completely ignoring me. I think it was the latter. Yeah. Az, what do you reckon about KDB and the premiums?
Well, essential is a stupid word because we're 4 games in. But gun to my head, if you look at Salah and Mane, and neither of them essential because I think you can make a case for having one and not the other. And I think it's the same with Sterling and Aguero. I think you can, if you saw someone with Aguero and not Sterling, you kind of be like, okay, they're spending that 12 million on Aguero. Whereas De Bruyne seems to be in a kind of just in a bracket on his own, where there's just, I mean, he's got players like Son around and Pepe and players like that, but his form is just too good and the fixtures are so good, and he's just the way he's playing is just so good. These aren't like fortunate assists. These are the assists of a man who is desperate to, he's desperate to score. He scored against Brighton in the first, few minutes. I mean, how often have we seen De Bruyne over the last few years, getting into the penalty area like that and wanting to score? Like, it's quite rare. It seems like he's being used in a kind of different way by Pep this year, which I think is really exciting. So I think I haven't got De Bruyne in my team at the moment, and I agree with Neil. He's not good. I mean, he's getting 9 points a game, which I think is, if he carries that on all season, he's going to get like 350 points or something. So, it's pretty unlikely that's going to happen. But at the same time, the fixtures are so good for him. I can't see why this form he's got at the moment can't continue until, for 5-6 weeks going on. So I think he's a really strong option. The question mark is, with Champions League coming, how are his minutes going to be managed? Because, I mean, they won the league without him last season, and they could do so. They could do it again pretty easily. So he came off at 60 minutes or 70 minutes, I think, against Brighton. He's probably going to come off early again against Norwich. It's just how much damage he can do in that time. I think the biggest problem with the captaincy is that if we try and predict who's going to come off at 60 minutes, who's going to start, all that kind of thing, it's just impossible to do. So I think you just have to look at the stats and look at what you've seen so far this season and just make the choice based on that. I think Norwich is a better game than Newcastle because I think Newcastle actually showed a bit of fight, which I wasn't expecting. So for me, it's a City boy for the captaincy. And it's between Sterling and De Bruyne. I think they're both great shouts.
Yeah, I mean, we're in danger of sounding obvious, but sometimes the obvious is just gets neglected in fantasy football. I mean, I like Aguero, Sterling, KDB, Salah, and Mane, and I could go on, and that's obvious. But I can't have them all. But I could have them all if perhaps the next best player of my remaining 5 or so places is Cantwell from Norwich, and I've got Dendoncker there as well, or it just goes on and on. I could keep having those, but the thing I've liked about FPL over the years has been having a balanced squad. I'd like to have choice across all the different positions, so that means having money for 6 to 7 million defenders, 6 to 7 million forwards, and so on, and that's one I favour. So for me, it's one of Sterling and Aguero and KDB, and by that stage I'm hesitant to use the word essential, but I think with Man City's fixtures coming up, because so many people will have one of Sterling and Aguero, I think you need the guy that's going to assist whoever's going to be scoring. And I think at the moment it's a great double up. I think it's a really lucrative double up. I did something on Twitter a while ago about the best double up so far this season, and it's KDB Aguero is absolutely fantastic. But to be honest, KDB and Sterling is a nice double up to have as well. So I'm not really interested in saying which is better. It's, to me, they're all great, but it's your attitude to balance. And if you don't mind having 5 or 6 premiums and then Todd Cantwell, and that's basically it, then fair enough. But I'm like a tightrope walker in this. I like balancing my squad in FPL, and others are a bit like a drunk hippo, and all over the shop with their balance. But maybe they'll do better than me. And those people with unbalanced squads last game week certainly did well.
Well, that's it. You look at the guy who I talked about in the smooth with Vardy, Aguero, De Bruyne, Sterling.
Yeah.
86 points. When it works big time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not all about my vague circus analogies, though. Fixtures play a part, and 2 of Man City's attack look. I think 2 of Man City's attack looks the best option for me over the fixture run, and better than having 2 Liverpool. So not Firmino and Salah, for example, and KDB's price tag just helps with that. So Man City have got Norwich, as we've discussed, then they've got Watford at home, wow, then Everton away, and that's considered their worst fixture for those coming up. They've got Wolves at home, should be goals in that, even though it's Wolves. Crystal Palace away, Aston Villa at home, Southampton at home. Oh, God, I mean, maybe I am starting to think, should I have an unbalanced squad? Because you just need as much Man City as you can possibly get into your side with those fixtures. Liverpool, meanwhile, have Newcastle. Then they got Chelsea away, Sheffield United away, Leicester at home. They're great. They're fine. Leicester maybe, I don't know. And then Manchester United away. Well, not sure. Tottenham at home as well, and then Aston Villa again. So it's not until they've got a few. It's patchy, put it that way. Whereas Man City's is a lovely sea of blue. And the 2 home games especially, towards the end, Aston Villa and Southampton at home. Oh, how many Man City players can we get in to a side? Well, anyway, let's move on, because there's rivals.
Well, one question for you just before we move on. So just because we talked a lot about City, but not too much about Liverpool. I'm just because you're on the wild card, so I think the decision you've got to make surely has got to be Salah or Mane. I'm just wondering what way you're leaning at the moment.
Salah. I went Mane over Salah at my wild card at the end of last season, towards the end of last season, 2 or 3 months ago. I didn't regret that at all. So in fact, some weeks Mane completely outscored Salah, as people know, and I'm quite happy to do that. But then Mane, I think, was it 2 million, 3 million was the price difference. Now it's just 1 million, and I've tried no Salah and putting Mane in, and there's not really much I can do that's amazing with that 1 million. Whereas if it was 2 or 3 million, well, my team would be amazing. But it's just not. That's not the case at the moment. And I think Salah is looking really good. I've got no reason to get rid of him. Mane's looking good as well. But it's that 1 million. It's not the be all and end all for me. It's like going on a quiz show or something, and you win like £500, and they say, "What are you going to do with that money?" I don't know. Buy some comics.
Hey, someone's doing well for themselves. Yeah. I'd love £500.
Well, yeah, I would love it, but I'd buy lots of comics with it. But if I was to win £50,000, then you start thinking about like, ooh, big things. Things, well, 50,000 comics maybe, but yeah.
There's a nice analogy that didn't involve the circus for once.
Good. I know. I've moved over to comics. I
think I'd go for Mane just to end that. If I was on a wild card, I think I'd probably take the 1 million.
I think
Run, take the £500.
no, it's like Chris Tarrant or Jeremy Clarkson on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I think I've had a great day out, Joe, but I'm going to take the money and run her this
Go
time.
take the money, yeah.
I don't know. Lots of people wildcarded the week before me, and they got Mane in instead of Salah. Pretty much all of them slightly regret it, perhaps openly and perhaps not openly for amongst some. But I just don't think there's a big enough price gap. If we could find a million, maybe. Let's move on. Enough of Salah's price and Mane's price. Az, you're introducing the next one. It's about another possible bunch of premiums, but also a team that have got great fixtures coming up. So yeah, what's this about, Az?
Whenever I see, so we're going to talk about Arsenal. Whenever I see Arsenal, have you seen that picture? And it's like Arsenal's attack, and it's like a Ferrari, and then gradually it goes down to like defense, and it's like the horses. Like us. That's how I picture Arsenal at the moment. So they've got amazing fixtures coming up. Just to see a green. So Pep Talk asks, what if any of their players are we considering, and how can we back any of their players when Emery just loves to rotate as much as he does, and we never know who's going to be in the team. Dibendu says, I'm on my wild card. He's got no Arsenal players. This is a foolish decision. What do we think about Ceballos? Is he a good punt? Josh 100 says Spurs and Arsenal are a great fixture. Should be considering the likes of Son and Kane over Aubameyang and Pepe. So Spurs as well, really good run of games. They've got players kind of in similar price ranges. So I guess people have got decisions to make there. And FPL Dave says, should we consider swapping between the more premium assets, e.g. Aubameyang and Kane for their good fixtures instead of Salah for the bad fixtures, the bad fixtures coming up. So let's come back to you, Joe. What do you think about Arsenal and Spurs? We'll talk about those as well, I guess.
Okay, so with Arsenal, what I'm finding interesting at the moment is I played the Sky game as well. So later in this week, I'm going to be having a video and a podcast out with Luke chatting about the Sky game. The reason is because they have an overhaul, so it's like everyone's got a wild card at the same time. So there's a big change there. And the difference there is there's different classifications of players and pricing. But what it does is it makes you think about some other players as well. Now in that game, you can get Aubameyang in, you can get City, good City coverage, KDB and Sterling, for example, and you can have Salah in. It's not a problem to have all of those bunch of players. And my immediate thought is I want Aubameyang. I look at the fixtures coming up, and I look at him, and I look at his track record. He's a Golden Boot winner as well, so I do like to have him. In FPL, it's starting to look to considering Ceballos, Pepe as well. I'm thinking, can he compete? He's got to compete with the likes of KDB. Or I'd go back to balance again. Having 2 9 million midfielders just doesn't seem to fit right with my midfield. So he's got to compete with the likes of KDB, and he just simply can't at the moment. Who knows? Maybe he will. So I've got some stats to help if people are considering Arsenal assets. Top of the tree, there he is, Aubameyang. 13 shots there, 9 in the box, 5 on target. These are fairly good underlying stats there for a player like that. Lacazette's lower down, 8 goal attempts as well. I'm not so keen there, but only 2 starts. Ceballos, 5 goal attempts, none inside the box, and just 2 on target. Once again, just 2 starts there. So I'm not having a lot of love for Ceballos at the moment. I just don't think that 4 data points, 4 game weeks has been enough to correctly assess him. So at the moment, he's a sort of pumped status at the moment. And Pepe as well. He's had 12 goal attempts just from 2 starts. So he is quite promising. 5 in the box and 4 of those on target. These are starting to be very promising. Now, I don't know. I might have to restructure my thoughts and get Pepe in. But at the moment, as I said, he's competing with KDB. So I'm looking at those, and I'm going to be brief with Spurs. I'm just not interested in them at the moment. They just look completely out of sorts. I'm not sure what's going on with Eriksen. Clearly doesn't want to be there. The manager, I don't think the manager wants to be there. Kane, will he be a central midfielder? Will he be a striker? It'd be great if he's a striker every week, but sometimes he's not, and I don't know. And sometimes he's not in those games like when Newcastle are at home or when Palace are at home, that type of thing that's coming up. And I just can't, it's trust, and I can't trust Spurs at the moment. But I haven't ruled them out at some point. But at the moment, I actually weirdly trust Arsenal a bit because they're showing a lot of promise. It's the unknown, and I think they're quite exciting at the moment, yeah. That's my thoughts on
God,
Arsenal.
wow. I mean, Aubameyang to me just seems completely just a complete no-go. Like playing on the wing, I think Pepe's a better option than him. Like he's not even guaranteed to start. I don't want anything for 11 million when you could have when you're looking at players like Aguero, KDB, Sterling, Salah, Mane. He's just so far down the list for what I think, and it's why I really like Ceballos. And I've been having some really good debates on Twitter with people because he's quite a divisive player. Because some people are just like it's coverage, he's not guaranteed to start, all of these things. But my sort of defense against that, he's 5.7 million. Like he doesn't need to start every game. And I know you disagree with this, Joe, which is why it's a good debate. But if he starts one match and gets 10 points, and then he doesn't start the next match and gets 1 point, and then starts the next match and gets 8 points, I'm happy with that for 5.7 million. I'll take that any day. The issues are if he consistently doesn't start, which I don't think is going to happen because I think he's going to work his way into that team and be first choice because he's too good to sit on the bench. Or if he does start and he doesn't deliver. And it's kind of, we're still trying to work out what his kind of position is. But if he's going to be playing in a kind of Ramsey role, sort of box to box, or he's going to be playing in an Ozil role at number 10, those players around him who, it's a bit like City. Not really sure who it could be. Aguero, could be Aubameyang, could be Lacazette, could be Pepe. If Ceballos is at number feeding those players, I think he's a really strong pick. So I'm more than happy to risk him for 5.7 million. I think he's the best sort of sub. We'll see. What do you think, Neil, about Arsenal?
Yeah, there's a few things to say here because let's disregard the defence for a start because no one's interested. Rotation. So on the subject of rotation, I think folk are probably thinking back end of last season when Arsenal were really deep in the Europa League and it was really kicking in. Now, Aubameyang started 23 the first 25 Premier League games last season and only really started to get the chop when Arsenal were really deep into that Europa League competition. So I don't think he's necessarily the rotation risk that people think he is. I think my concern with Aubameyang, as has already said it, is where he's going to play within that front three. If Emery's going to make this a regular occurrence of playing Pepe, Lacazette and Aubameyang together, which he probably will, given the fixtures, he can afford to take a few chances. Is Aubameyang is potent from the left. Now he's a bit like Vardy in that he's a stat buster because his goal conversion rate is always really good. It's always up towards like mid-20s or even towards the 30s. But I had a look at, if you cast your minds back to Gameweek 4 to 12 last season, and this was when Aubameyang was out on the left wing. He played, I think, 11 of those 12 game weeks on the left. And his stats were not great. He had 15 shots, which is 23 fewer than Aguero. He was ranked joint 10th, and this is just among FPL forwards. It says, that's not even regarding Salah and Sterling. 11 shots in the box, 20 fewer than Aguero. That was joint 15th amongst FPL forwards. Having said all that, he scored more goals than anybody. So, but he was sort of defying the stats. Now, can he keep doing that? Now he's consistently showing a good conversion rate, but it's asking a lot. I think. I think if I had unlimited budget, obviously you'd have him in for these fixtures, but I do think that is a possible factor. We even saw it against Spurs at the weekend. He started on the left. He's had one shot until Lacazette went off. All of a sudden, he's playing up top. Has 3 shots in the final 20-odd minutes, scores. So, yeah, that is an issue, I think. He's not a bad pick. Of course, he's not with the fixtures. I just think, given what we've said so far, and given the competition in that field, in that price bracket, there are possibly better options at the moment. He could come and, prove me all wrong here, but that's my logic for not getting him so far.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, he's obviously a good option. He won the Golden Boot last season. He's one of the best strikers in the world. We're not sitting here saying, he's going to get points over this amazing run Arsenal have got. But what you've got to consider is the players around him have got. I mean, you look at City; their fixtures are just as good. So you can't justify dropping one of those guys. Liverpool. I think the thing is, and the way I see it, is that Liverpool and City are just so far ahead of everyone else that you have to prioritise players from those two teams. And even if Liverpool's run isn't that great, you still need one of Mane or Salah, I think, because they're still going to score loads of goals. So if you've got one of Mane and Salah, you've got 3 City players, you just can't fit in. You just can't fit in Aubameyang. You just can't fit in Pepe. I just can't, unless you do what Joe was talking about earlier and just completely killing your team just to have 4 players. I think it's really difficult to do it. So what can you? There's not really much you can do. You can only look to see the other cheaper ones. That's why I think Ceballos could be a really good pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think what it's a good point with Aubameyang. If you want to get people like me wildcarding, or if you're not on a wildcard, to get Aubameyang in, it's a big gamble, and it's a gamble with the whole structure of your team. You're basically locked in with that, and it takes a bit of surgery to kind of move your funds around, really. And of course, you're going to be lacking some other good players as well, particularly maybe in defence, maybe the likes of Alexander-Arnold or Luca Dean. You can't really afford them if you have more. And obviously, I say things like that, and I get loads of Twitter people sending me pictures of their team with all the other players I've just mentioned in, and they've somehow managed to get them in. Well, good luck with that, and let's have a chat in Gameweek 38 and see how you're doing then. Because I'm not sure that unbalanced setup is going to do that every single week. And that's why I mentioned the Sky game for me, because in a way you don't have an unlimited budget, but you have a much freer budget there. And immediately I want Aubameyang for that, because I've got the money to do it, and I wish I did in FPL. Just before we move on, I just wanted to remind people of the fixtures that Arsenal have got coming up. Of course, they've got Watford coming up, new manager or old manager. They've got a different manager.
Weird. Then
they have Aston Villa at home. That's potentially very good. Manchester United away could be good. Bournemouth at home. That's Bournemouth defence. Sheffield United, Crystal Palace and Wolves as well. So a really nice bunch of fixtures there from an attacking point of view. I'm not saying that as Neale pointed out with their defence, I'm not quite sure about the clean sheet possibility there, and I don't care because I'm just not going to go there. But attacking wise, there's some really great options there. Let's move on to our talking point as well. Now, FPL Muzzy, I just want to pay tribute to FPL Muzzy here, who kindly did a survey of people about the kind of data points they use. So looking at data influences on FPL, kind of a big topic as well, but hopefully we can bring in expected stats, which a lot of people are very interested in at the moment. Neale, take it away.
Yeah, you've introduced it very well there. I'll just rehash what you've said. Okay. What data do we rely on each week? So is it the eye test? Which stats do we use, and how, if at all, do we use expected data? Which is a bit of a divisive issue, I think, in the community. Has been for a while. So Az, let's come to you. Which data do you consider when getting on an attacking bandwagon? This is a question. I should say this is a question from Luke Spurs. I was passing this off as my own work, but it's not. It's a question from him. He says, which data do you consider when considering an attacking bandwagon? Is it the eye test, the expected stats, or old-fashioned stats like shots in the box? So take it away, Az.
Well, I mean, I feel like a bit like I'm on QI and I'm going to say something really obvious, and then all the alarm things are going to go off. But it's a combination of a lot of different things. Because they're all important. I mean, fixtures are, apart from City and Liverpool, who I think are almost fixture-proof now unless they're playing each other. I think you have to look at fixtures for some of the other sides and see where you can kind of make a ground. It's one of the reasons I wanted to get Haller in, because I saw he had 2 promoted teams. So he had Norwich and he's got Villa. So I thought, this is a good week to get him, because you're going to get, and it was the same with Chelsea as well, when Mount and Abraham had Norwich and then Sheffield United. If you can spot something like that where a team has got 2 sort of quite easy, as it turned out not to be easy for Chelsea, but on paper it was easy, then in theory it should be quite a sensible move. Form I do go with a bit less. I like to spot players before they kind of hit form, and the best way to do that is to look at the underlying stats. So my favourite stats in the members area are touch in the penalty area, which I use all the time. I love the heat map as well. So looking at De Bruyne's heat map now compared to 2 seasons ago, if you look at the average, like he's just playing so much more advanced, and that just tells you he's getting the ball in more dangerous areas, and he's going to potentially be an even better option than he was 2 years ago when he got sort of 200 points. And for assists, I look at chances created and set set pieces taken. That's also really useful as well to see which players are taking set pieces. I got to admit, I just don't like expected goals or expected. I just find expected goals. I just find it weird that a player can just be like luckily in the right position, and then he scores, and then his XG is really high, but it's all down to that one time he was in the right position he should have scored. I just find it a bit more. I don't know.
Do you find it a bit? Do you find it a little bit mathsy? You know,
yeah.
When someone says, "Oh, but their XG is this," and immediately I start thinking, "Oh, I just think of a boring maths teacher by a blackboard with lots of algebra." I don't know. For me, is it a presentation issue rather than the stat itself?
Maybe, maybe it's because I don't really fully understand it. Like if you told me to break it down and then, give you a proper like kind of tutorial of what it is, I'm just like, I don't know. Whereas I'm much more comfortable looking at stats that I understand. Touching the penalty area, that means he's touched it in the penalty area. That must be good because that means he's near the goal. That kind of works with my brain better. So maybe I just grab, but I don't know. I struggle with expected goals. I don't really find it useful as some of the others.
Joe, you've hinted there about how you feel about it. Go on.
Yeah, well, no, I'm not.
Abuse at it.
I'm not fully with Az on the expected goals. I do warm to it sometimes. Okay, so for me, well, let's have a look at what FPL Muzzy's been saying in his survey. So he surveyed up to about 220 votes, so it's very early days on this survey. But 48% said the eye test was the most important to them. And then we got form at 22%, stats at 17%, and fixtures at 15% as well. I found the fixtures one very low on that, and as well, and also with stats and form, as intimated as well, that's basically the same thing. You're looking at underlying stats and you're looking at their form. Well, that's the same thing. Surely it's just stats.
Well, no, not necessarily. So my girlfriend plays fantasy football, and she does fairly well, but her main tactic is FPL form. So she will literally look at the points they've scored. She doesn't care anything about stats. She literally looks at the form of players, how many points they've scored, and bases on that, and that works well for her. And in some ways, that is a really kind of like sort of dumbed down way of doing it, because the player's underlying stats, as we know, look at Tadic all those years ago, best stats ever, awful FPL returns. I think there's still got to be an element of getting the points as well.
Well, I mean there's two things there. One is that you basically said your girlfriend is dumbed down and so I hope she's not watching, and I'm sure she's not.
Nah, she's not.
Dummy the day. But also the other thing is, I think with bonus points as well. So if you're looking at FPL form and you're looking at bonus points are really based on a lot of those things like chances and shots on or off target and all of those types of things. So you you integrate that into FPL form, and yeah, obviously it's not the same amount of points, but I think it is included there. But for me, I'm a little bit. I have the ear test. Now, this is a bit weird. Everyone goes on about the eye test. So, for me, this is a bit weird. I consume my football in a slightly different way. I listen to a lot of live matches at the weekend because it means I can get on with other things. I've got kids, I've got other stuff to do, and if I haven't got time to sit and watch live matches all the time, so it can be there on the background as well. So I do watch match of the day highlights as well. I do occasionally watch the live games as well, but not too many of them, and also check the stats of players as well once I've kind of watch listed them in terms of adding more attitude to form. So what stats I'm looking at are things like for strikers is as Az was saying, is like are they traditional stats really, shots in the box, are they on target, that's it. Midfielders, their chances they're creating, defenders, chances as well, bonus potential as well, and I look at the team, will they get a clean sheet? And I'm looking for multiple routes to points. So fixtures are important to me, but I do agree there can be a catch to them as well. So for example, last season I ditched Sigurdsson and Luca Dean towards the end of last season because they had bad fixtures coming up, and we all know what happened. They all scored a massive amount of points during these bad fixtures. They punish me pretty much every week. I'm interested a little bit in expected stats and how they can help. So for example, expected goals conceded I'm finding interesting. Norwich have conceded 10 goals, but their expected goals conceded, this is what they suggest, that they've perhaps been unlucky, and they still should have conceded about 6, so they're still not great, but they're not as bad perhaps as 10 goals points out. So I'm not, a huge cheerleader for expected stats, but I think they can be useful. So another example I've got is I've modified my goals imminent table this season to filter by, now this gets a bit mathsy, by filters in terms of minus delta xg, as the maths teacher at the front of the class would be saying. But that's basically a mathsy way of saying they are underperforming. So basically I've added in underperforming to a table that assesses who's underperforming anyway. So I'm 50% sort of ear and eye test, 30% stats and form. I'm going to combine them too. And I'm about 20% fixtures. I think that adds up to 100. So that's where I'm at there. So
who knows?
Who knows?
I hope someone's working that out.
Yeah, so I'm ear and eye test mainly. But I am interested in expected stats. But I'm not like a massive champion. And people have got to understand that they sound like a blooming maths teacher when they go on about them. And perhaps as a way of generating that. Anyway, Neil, this is your topic. And of course, you actually are one of the few people who does present expected stats in a way that I can understand. So yeah, tell us what you think about these things.
Yeah, you pair of Luddites. Who do you think you are? Yeah, well, I do it because I have to. It's my job. Yeah, it's going to be down to me to be the defence lawyer, isn't it, for XG? But yeah, I use it as I would any other stat. I think a lot of people are put off by the, as you say, maybe the way it's presented, the initialisms, the acronyms, and things like that. Don't know what some of them mean. Yeah, so reverting back to what the question was, I use probably form and the eye test sort of piques my interest, and then the fixtures kind of retain my interest, and then the underlying stats is probably what elevates that interest into a transfer, for example. I don't know which way around it is. It's probably a combination of all four. So yeah, I think basic stats I use: shots in the box, big chances. I think that's pretty much what I said. Chances created if it's someone like De Bruyne, or big chances created. I think probably expected goal data is a little way down the list, but it's not something to disregard because it's just a way of packaging big chances and big chances created in a different way. That's all it's doing really. Because, for example, a penalty has an XG of 0.78 or something like that. So that's deemed a big chance. You'd see that in your big chances column in the stats area, and that would at the same time elevate your XG. So the two kind of go hand in hand. So yeah, I do use it. I think I like probably XGI is the one I use the most because that lumps everything together. I think that is handy because that isn't something that you can do by looking at the basic stats. You can't. Well, you could have them all side by side, but I think XGI is a really good way of getting a mathematical figure which calculates roughly how likely a player is to deliver an attack and return, whether that be a goal or whether it be an assist. We obviously prefer goals, but I think as long as we're getting something, we're relatively happy. So I think I do use that a lot, XGI. I think there's other ones within the Fantasy Scout members area which aren't maybe as well documented, which I think often are as useful, if not more so. So XG non-penalty is something I'm going to introduce here if someone's not aware of it. But something you might not use that very often, but I'll give an example. So Rashford scores very well in terms of XG and big chances and that, but he's taken 2 penalties this season, which kind of distorts the figures at this early stage when there's only 4 game weeks worth of data. And Man United's a good example because we don't know who's going to take the next penalty. If it was Rashford taking all of them, then you don't disregard penalty taking. Because he isn't nailed, then you can't really rely on those kind of chances. So, for example, Rashford's XG is, I think, 2.98, which is like 3 goals, basically. When you take penalties away, it's 1.4. So he doesn't look quite the attractive option he does when you include penalties. So that's an example of one of the variations of XG you can use in conjunction with everything else. I think the problem at this stage of the season, and I'll leave it here on that discussion, is the fact that we're only 4 weeks in, and if you get one excellent chance, that catapults your XG right up the table. So, for example, I think Seamus Coleman is something like 3rd or 4th amongst defenders for XG based on one big chance that he had at Crystal Palace on the opening day. So
That's what I was kind of thinking. Like, surely
Yeah.
it's, especially at this stage of the season,
Yeah.
surely it skews it something like that.
It does. Massively. I mean, like Salah and Sterling are already way ahead of the other midfielders. And I think it is fairly accurate in their regard. But yeah, defenders as well. 4 game weeks is pretty narrow parameters when you're talking about XG. And as I say, like especially defenders who don't get that many big chances. One gilt edge opportunity is going to skew the data massively. But I think over a longer period of time, I think it is useful. And of course, I am going to say that because I'm on the payroll and I'm going to try and sell memberships. But yeah, I am more of a user, I sense, than you two, but I don't place a lot of emphasis on it. It's just another tool I can use to make my
I find it the most useful when comparing players. I don't often use those kind of tools so much for like a single player, but when I'm deciding on 2 players, or say I've got 5.2 million to spend on a defender or something, and I'm just looking at all the different combinations of players. It's so nice being able to look at players like side by side and having some key things, some key metrics that you kind of compare. It's helped me. Yeah, it's definitely helped loads of times over the years.
Yeah, I found it quite interesting integrating this expected stats data into the goals imminent table. So what this shows really is I still highly value things within that table, like amount of shots and whether that shot is on target and close range as well. But you also got to manually in your head think, well, hang on a minute, that guy's got terrible fixtures, so I don't think he's going to do so well. But the expected goals, so this expected minus data. For goals I've integrated. So for my goals imminent table at the moment, Maddison is top, but he's had. But I'm not sure expected data's telling me anything spectacular there. He's got bad fixtures coming up, obviously, but he's also had no shots on target. So I feel it's muddying the waters slightly there. However, it does have Pepe and Barkley there, and De Bruyne. So more to come goal-wise from De Bruyne, it's suggesting, and also Bernardo Silva. If he's getting the minutes, he's going to get the goals. And Tielemans there as well. Bad fixture, a bit like Maddison, but it's quite interesting that those players have fixtures coming up. So perhaps it's creating goals imminent for something into the future as well. But I'm not sure how expected tells me anything about Maddison. If he's having no shots on target, that tells me that he's not really a goal threat at the moment. But yeah, maybe.
Would you say you look at shots on target that often, or would you?
Yeah.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's because if someone's, I know 0 shots on target is a bit of an extreme example, but someone's whistling them wide, by inches or hitting the post. That's what shots on target doesn't tell you.
Yeah.
Whereas XG kind of does. In fact, there's variations called expected goals on target, which calculates like a post model shot. I'm not going to bore you with the details.
Oh, here we go.
Is there an XG? Oh, that was close. Is there an expected stats of? Oh, that was close.
Yeah, well, there kind of is, but it relies on shots on target. There's a thing called XGOT, which is nothing to do with Game of Thrones. It's expected goals on target. And it's about it's rather than, because XG is like an assessment of the chances and the quality of the chances, not what happens after the shot's taken. Whereas XGOT, I'm boring myself now, is a sort of post shot model. Yeah. So it tells you about where the shot's actually gone in relation to the goal, bottom corner, things like that. So some people might find that useful. I don't know. But anyway, if you want to find out more about it, I did a piece on it, I think last week. You should be able to find it in articles pretty high up.
No, I don't totally discount it. I think it's interesting because I think people are using expected stats in a useful way. And I think it is helping people. I see it very much at the moment as fine-tuning. And the point that you make about, a shot being close and shots on target not quite showing the full picture, for me that's where the old eye test, or in my case the ear test, or as Mark O'Leary on our live thread has posted up, it should be my nose test as well. So I'm not quite sure what that is. I think that's getting into the realm of I trust my gut with that decision, which of course is meaningless, but that's where you kind of integrate that's why it's important that you listen or you watch the matches, because then you can see whether that shot's going close as well. And I remember earlier in Jamie Vardy's poorer games at the beginning, his first two, to me, the commentators just kept saying he was in a great position, or that was close, and I was just thinking, well, he seems really involved. And then you look at the underlying stats, and they weren't so impressive as well. So that's where the eye test comes into that. Anyway, we should call that a halt now on that. I think we've pandered enough to the expected stats fans, who I've completely dismissed all as maths teachers, but they're not, and perhaps we should be looking at them a little bit more to fine-tune our team as well. As differential and clean sheet time for game week 5. You introduced this.
Yeah, and I think this does touch it nicely because obviously Neale's the stats man and we're actually giving him differential pick this week. So it better be a good one. It better be based entirely on XG and X Game of Thrones and X all the other bits and bobs. So just a shout out to how we're doing so far. I mean, we've adopted this new format. We're doing it over 4 weeks rather than 1. And I can say now that with Haller delivering for you, Joe, we've now, me, you, David and Luke, have all successfully picked a differential who's returned over the weeks. Luke's had Callum Robinson, David went for Cantwell, I went for Pookie just before his hat-trick, and you went for Haller. So, I like this new format. It makes us gives us a bit more time to get it right rather than one game week. So Neale, I am dying to know who you are going for the next 4 game weeks.
So you've basically picked players who had already scored, who were playing up front, and you're celebrating the fact that they've got 1 attack and return in 4 game weeks. Anyway.
Pookie's got
has,
5 goals in 3 games.
He has. So I've been very harsh there.
Haller only had 1 game. I've only had him for.
Yeah.
So it'd be my difference. He can't play more than 1 in 1 week, can he?
Well, the good thing is that I'm not on here very often, so I can take more of a gamble.
Okay.
And I'm not answerable for my crimes if I get this completely wrong. So I'm going to go with. Has no one gone with a defender this season? I don't think so. No. Okay, so here we go. James Tarkowski. I mentioned him.
Oh my God.
Yes. I
What's his XG, Neale?
I can't tell you that. This is purely based on your basic stats. So So I remember listening to Scoutcast last season about I think it was Luke made a very good point in that if you're targeting defenders for the goal threat, they're going to get maximum of 4 or 5 a season, which is 1 every 7 game weeks, something like that, 8 game weeks. So it's not a great start. What I'm going on basically. So it's partly to do with Burnley's fixtures, so they've got some brilliant ones ahead. Sea of Blue, I think, on a season ticket for now until game week 14, 15, possibly beyond that. They've got Chelsea as well, but I don't count that as a hard fixture anymore. Him and Ben Mee. Let's start with a goal threat. So they've racked up 22 touches in the penalty box this season. 8 goal attempts between them, all of them in the box, all of them headers. I think all from set pieces. Tarkowski's ahead of Ben Mee in that regard. Now, Tarkowski, he had 5 goal involvements last season, which was around, I think, the top 3 or 4 in terms of centre-halves. And the fact that we are looking at a 4 game week range is sort of made me focus on him, because if you're trying to pick or trying to second guess when a defender's going to score in 1 game week, then it's a bit of a fool's errand. But I think if you're looking over the space of a month, then you're going to give yourself a better chance. I think he's amongst the biggest goal threats amongst defenders at the moment. I think defensively, Burnley's a lot better than what they were last season, certainly at the start of last season. No teams conceded fewer big chances than Burnley this season, so 4, despite the fact that they were bottom of the season ticker for game weeks 1 to 4. So they had some pretty testing fixtures to start with. Here we go. Expected goals, my first mention of it. Expected goals conceded total in that run was 4.58. That's the 6th best in the division, despite being bottom of the season ticker. So I think they're posting some pretty decent stats at the moment at both ends in Tarkowski's tier. So I am going to give myself 4 weeks for him to get. The good thing is you can get either a clean sheet or a goal, and that counts, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All counts.
So
I have never heard a better argument for a player ever, and now I want him.
So Okay. Well, look, I mean, FPL Muzzy was talking about percentages of things. I 50% agree with you, Neil,
Okay.
because of the fixtures. They've got Brighton, Norwich, Aston Villa, Everton, and Leicester coming up. There's lots of chance for clean sheets there, so it's a really nice backup. It doesn't matter about the goal threat at the moment because you should be getting 2, maybe 3, even if you're lucky, clean sheets there, which is a good bunch of returns for a defender that's 5 million. But what I don't like about him is I'm not sure he's the best Burnley. I don't dispute the Burnley clean sheet potential, but I think FPL wise, I don't think he's perhaps the best option as well. He's 5 million. So at 4.6, you could get Peters, who I think has nailed on that place now.
Oh God.
Yeah,
No.
he's got 18 points at the moment, and Tarkowski's
Yeah,
got 9.
one luck game. He's not
2
going
assists based on absolutely nothing. I think, well, there's only 2 chances he's created this season.
Yeah, well, this is where the expected
God,
maths
Joe,
teachers
no.
come into it. But what I'm saying, or perhaps Pope as well. Okay, well, let's go for a more popular option.
But these aren't differentials, Joe. These are 12%.
Yeah, I know, but what I'm saying is you're presenting a differential to who are relatively cheap, but and they're up against these types of players that I'm mentioning here as well. So this is the same with I mean, Allaire was up against, say, Pookie, for example, but we would have Pookie no longer a differential. But I just think in terms of at the moment, I think Pope, Peters, Loughton, I think are offering better value than Tarkowski. Also, what you're getting with him as well is...
I agree with Pope. I agree with Pope.
Well, yeah, what you're getting with him, though, is basically around about 100 points a season. I know it's kind of cyclical, depending on good fixtures. So 2018-19, Tarkowski got 3 goals and 2 assists. That's not bad. That's a pretty good return. But, it's not, as you said, it's, trying to find out when he's going to have those returns in a 38 game week period is quite tricky. Previous season, 101 points, no goals. Previous season, 23 points, no goals. So obviously hardly any minutes there as well. So I just don't think he's... I think he's a nice safe option because he's going to get clean sheet points and he's under 5%. But I think in terms of that type of market, he's competing with better players.
I think you're being very harsh to Tarkowski. I mean, I'm probably going to be getting... I've got to find a downgrade for Van Dijk, basically, at some point, either this week or next, because I need to get De Bruyne in, and the only way I can do it is if I lose. That's another thing. But if I downgrade Van Dijk to a defender around 5.2 million or something like that, it's like, who do I get? Like, there is literally no one who I want. I don't want any of the Tottenham players. They're all rubbish. I don't want any Arsenal defenders. I don't want any of them. So the team who, if I think about a team who could give me a reliable defender, I immediately think of Burnley because they do keep clean sheets. They love a 1-0 win. It's perfect. If I've already got Pope and I'm looking at a defender, I'm not going to get Eric Peters or Loughton. Oh my God, no. I think everything Neil said about Tarkowski is really good, and it might actually influence me a bit to get him myself because I need a 5 million-ish defender, and I think Burnley on top of the season ticker, and if his goal threat is as good as you say is, Neil, well,
I did not see that.
I think the goals are coming.
Well,
I'm totally invested.
I'm going to echo some views in the recent Meet the Manager video we did, where I interviewed Josh from the Always Cheating podcast. Had 3 top 5K finishes, so he's got the pedigree there. But one of the interesting things he was saying, he says, with his fullbacks, he wants expensive from a top team. With his centre backs, he wants cheap from a not such a top team as well. And so that's why I'm erring. I think it is important that he's 5 million and that other alternatives who are scoring more in FPL terms than him are that little bit cheaper as well. So look at the bonus point system at the moment. So at the moment, we're only 4 games in as well. So Peters have got 80, Loughton 59, Tarkowski 54, and Pope with 89. So this is what he's competing with Burnley's fixtures there. I want my cheap defender to get bonus point potential, and I'm not sure that Tarkowski's matching up really with Pope or Peters, especially Pope. Let's stick with Pope because everyone, particularly Az, seems to hate Eric Peters, but for Pope I think very popular, and I just think getting Tarkowski and Pope, maybe there's a differential there. That's an even bigger differential in itself because you're betting on getting that double clean sheet. But if I wanted to get bonus multiple routes to points, I mean, this is crazy. People are tuning in and listening to us arguing about Burnley defenders and thinking,
I love it.
I don't know what they're on, but I want some of it because they they clearly haven't. But this is what we're coming down to in our FPL strategy. So as I said, I'm 50% with you though, Neil. But
yeah. I mean, obviously the pick is slightly, I wouldn't say tongue in cheek, but I'm probably not going to go for myself. And I acknowledge that is a problem price, I think, because 0.5 million goes a long way this season, especially. I think when you're trying to cram in as many differentials as you can. And if you're downgrading someone like Van Dijk or Robertson, then you probably want to go the full hog. You want to go down to 4.5. I acknowledge that. If you've already got a goalkeeper you're set on, for example, though, say a Heaton, and you don't want to switch him to Pope, and you are looking for a way to the Burnley defence, and, which is a lot of ands, you've got that bit of cash free in defence. I mean, funnily enough, I've got a 5 million defender there in Walker Peters who I want rid of. Who I don't necessarily want to downgrade to a 4.5. I don't need the cash at the moment. So it is possible I could do it. If I wasn't fighting fires elsewhere, then I would consider it. So yeah, I'm not for 1 minute saying that Tarkowski is the best route into the Burnley defence. I think Pope is, and I agree with you there. I do think if it's differentials you're looking at, and yes, I acknowledge what you're saying about the bonus, but a goal will take care of that. And it's not like he's scoring low on the bonus point system. So I think he got 23 BPS on the opening day of the season. So he's not a million miles away, I don't think. But yeah, I've said my piece, Joe, and we'll see what happens.
I think the key thing is if you look at it, if you extend it away from Tarkowski, if you're looking for a differential, then I think double Burnley defence could be a good option going forward because they've got great top of the season ticker. They've been in good form, throughout the season, despite some tricky games. And I think that's the key thing is that it might actually be quite clever to double up on them for their good run.
And I'm
thinking about it now.
I mean, I still think Peters is. Let's go back to him as well. He's 8.5% owned. I don't think that's he's not like Pookie or something 30% owned or something like that. I'm not sure what the injury situation with McNeil at the moment, but 0.4 in midfield. I know we're talking midfielder here, but I'm starting to think that he could be a good differential.
He is the most boring player you could ever own. I've owned him before. Is he? No, sorry, Peters.
You really hate
Peters. I really hate. He's just so dull.
I'm trying to woo you with other Burnley players so that you'll go all dewy-eyed and
so angry. Oh wow! They're so angry about Peters still.
Their fullbacks create absolutely nothing. I mean, I had a look at the data last season as well, and Loughton or Barsey was playing on that right back role, and then Taylor did have some crosses, but chance creation was way down. And I think that sort of rigid 4-4-2 setup, I think that a lot of their creation comes from Goodmanson and McNeil. They don't really rely on the fullbacks getting forward often. Peter's 2 assists were fluky, weren't they? I mean, I seem to remember one being wasn't it like from the halfway line or something? Doesn't he just swing the ball forward and someone got in the end of it?
I think Eric makes his own luck there. But Neil, let's stick partially with Burnley. You're going to reveal the teams that have the best chance for clean sheet over the next few fixtures.
Yeah, so this is straight from the season ticker. So for the uninitiated, if you remember, you can look at the season ticker, whether it be the one on the homepage or the one in the season tickers tab if you want a wider range of games. And you can sort by defence or attack or overall. Obviously, we're looking at defence today for clean sheets. And top of that list, Burnley. There you go. This is over the next 5. This is the image I'm looking at anyway that you've put up, Joe. Spurs second, who have yet to keep a clean sheet this season, I believe. I think they're one of just a handful of teams who've yet to done that. City third, and then Villa, Villa, Arsenal, and Norwich after that. But I suspect Arsenal and Norwich people aren't going to go near, despite those favourable fixtures. But yeah, Burnley right at the top. Spurs is interesting actually. They kind of catch my eye. Everything I've seen of them so far suggests they're not going to keep clean sheets because Lloris, I think, has made more saves than any other keeper so far this season. Although they have played Man City and Arsenal away. I do think when one fight is back, I think he's going to be the sort of the more solid right back option. They've got Ndombele to come back as well. I think he gives them a bit more in midfield. So, and they're playing teams like Palace, Southampton, who are pretty blunt in attack that aren't really offering much. I think Palace are fourth, but have they scored, 3 goals this season? I think, something like
Dembele's
that.
gone, isn't he?
Ndombele.
Oh, Ndombele. Oh, yeah.
I know he's not really a defensive midfielder in that kind of mould, but I think
He strengthens that midfield.
He does,
yeah,
very much so, yeah. Brighton, who have they not scored since the opening day? So I think there's some good fixtures there. I think they are catching my eye. If we'd seen a bit more of them, like in the first 4 game weeks, from a convincing point of view, then I'd be tempted to keep Walker Peters. But yeah, I'm not convinced. I think Burnley is the way to go. I think. I don't know what you lot. I think. Az, what do you reckon? That season catches your eye.
We can't keep talking about Burnley.
Please don't mention Burnley.
That sums it up. I think Spurs though. I just don't like them at all. They're just such a weird team. Like, they had such a good season last season. Looks like they've gone kind of backwards again this season. Like, their defense just looks so unsettled. Like, losing Trippier and Aurier being injured and Rose sort of almost going out the door but then staying last minute, and don't know what's happening with Davies anymore. Like, and then Vertonghen didn't play the first game because of tactical reasons or something, and Sanchez is playing at right back. It's just all chaos in their defence at the moment, and I just have no interest in any of their defenders. I just don't think they're going to keep clean sheets, because the team sense that kind of weakness and go for them. So I'm really not interested in Spurs. City, we don't know how they're going to do without Laporte. It's going to be really interesting. I mean, Otamendi's almost kind of, he doesn't seem to have any faith of Pep whatsoever now, but now he's almost their kind of first choice centre back. Who's going to partner him? Is it going to be Stones? Is he even fit? Is Fernandinho going to come in? Is Walker going to come in at centre back? Like, they're just going to have to rely so much on just never giving the ball away, because I think if teams do get at City, then they probably can hurt them if it's going to be Otamendi.
I think the interesting thing about Otamendi is because he tends to get the left side of that centre back pairing. So when they need Laporte replacement, it's Otamendi is there for that role, and that's why I think people just sense he's a bit nailed there as well. Zinchenko obviously has competition, we think, from Mendy possibly coming back, but has a lot of Zinchenko owners would say that he's done enough to keep that role as well. But I think what the fixtures show, with Norwich, Watford, Everton, Wolves and Crystal Palace coming up, that Man City have the fixtures to get clean sheets there. So I think a Man City defender, I think it's worth a gamble. They're going to do okay without Laporte. They did all right without KDB for goals last season, so I think they can miss a player or 10.
Well, 5.4 is such a good price for Otamendi, and 5.6 is such a good price for Zinchenko. And I kind of feel like with Zinchenko that the defence is already unsettled with Laporte leaving. Is he really going to want to bring Mendy back into an unsettled defence? And it's more likely he's going to give him cup games and probably some easy to win Champions League group games, right? Rather than, because Zinchenko's been playing really well. I just can't see him being like, okay, let's take out our most solid player in a defence that's already ravaged by injuries and bring in Mendy, the most unpredictable defender, like in pretty much like in the league. So I think Zinchenko's probably pretty safe for a while.
Let's move on to our teams for Game Week 5. We're going to look at our captaincy decisions and our transfers. So we're going to start with me, because I'm transferring everyone. So I'm wildcarding. So here's my wildcard team. So I've actually talked about this quite a lot already on the Breakfast Club video. I talked about it before Game Week 4 had even kicked off. And it hasn't really changed a tremendous amount from this going into the game week. KDB and one of Sterling or Aguero double up is too good to miss out on, so I've restructured for that. And I've done that with a 3-5-2 or 4-4-2. I love a bit of balance, and I think that is actually offering me a lot of balance there. Ashley Barnes is the one I can't really get, but if I do get him, I have to get rid of someone like Pookie. So if Pookie's delivering, well, why should I want Ashley Barnes? Because I've got Pookie. So I'm looking at fixtures and form. Allaires there. Pope is in. We've spoken about Pope. And I haven't got Tarkowski. And we spoke about Otamendi as well. I think he's good to go. 5.4. And I've also looked at the cheap seats for Sionyu for Leicester, but I've got my eye on some future fixtures here. So the basic way I'm doing it is that Lundstram, Cantwell for Norwich, who I point out is a 5th midfielder, not a 4th midfielder, and as well with Sionyu at Leicester, I think they can all rotate amongst each other. I don't want to play all of them all the time, but I want to play maybe one. each week. So, for example, this week I think Lundstrom's got a good fixture. Quite happy to play him. Game week 7, Seonyu, I think I'll be happy to play him. More than happy. Game week 9 onwards, we've spoken about Leicester's fixtures. Go and have a look at their fixtures from game week 9 onwards. It's a lovely sea of blue, so I'm happy to play him as well. I just think with the one last point though is Mount. So we talked about Thebeo, and I don't like Mount's next 2 fixtures. But from game week 7, I do like his fixtures. So do I call him think ahead and it's just a transfer down the line I don't have to worry about? Or do I take a gamble and go for a punty player like Thebeo? Arsenal got good fixtures and go for him. So that's my last choice really. Salah or Sterling? Captain, vice-captain? I don't know. I've gone for Salah at the moment. But yeah,
can I attack it now?
Attack it. Attack.
I mean, firstly, it is the most boring team I've ever seen in my life.
Nice.
And I really thought you turned a corner, Joe, with your maverick decisions at the start of the season when you were going for players like Coleman and all of that. And it's just, I mean, so boring. I can't really tear it apart because it's just really, really dull. But my biggest thing is like all you're doing is just turning your team into everyone else's team. And it's just where, I feel a wild cards. You've taken all the wild out of a wild card.
Yeah. It's just a card.
Hate it.
It's just a card, isn't it? There are 10 to 11. If I remove Mount, that's 11 changes there. So I've made a lot of changes. And moving it to everyone's team, it depends who everyone is. It was something I talked once again on the Meet the Manager video with Josh about what is the template as well. So some people it's the Twitter template, some people it's overall rank, overall ownership, and some people it's just specifically their mini leagues or key mini leagues they're in. But for me, I don't know what the template is because at the moment overall ownership is all over the shop at the moment. And yeah, I've got KDB in, and because everyone's got him, but have everyone got him? What's his ownership now? 30%, 20%. So there's 70% of people or so don't have him. So they're not the template there. And what's wrong with getting good players in? And I'm just going to say, you're saying it's really boring. I take that as a great compliment.
I think the problem with it is that when you've got the wild card in the bank, because at the moment you're relying on Pukki and Mount and Haller and Lundstrom and Otamendi and like you've got Greenwood and Cantwell. Like these are all players who at the start of the season you would never even have considered, and it's been 4 weeks and now they're all in your team. What happens when you go for a few weeks and all of these players just stop delivering? You've got no wild card to fall back on. And you're going to be struggling. See,
the point is with Lundstram, Cantwell, and these Magic Bean players is I don't have to play them all the time. But to be honest, look at Norwich's fixtures coming up as well, and the fact that Lundstram's playing in midfield, and look at Leicester's fixtures with Seonyu coming up from game week 9 onwards. Also, he's very playable in game week 7. So I look at those and I think, what's wrong with playing them? When I want to play them, and I've got transfers coming up as well. It's nice to have a wild card every week or every time I want to change it. But I'm already starting to look ahead to when people may be wildcarding a bit in the future, next international break, and then we start to see Leicester's fixtures turn. And that's when I start thinking, well, do I want Maddison in as well? So I'm already starting to think a bit how I want to get Maddison in as well. So maybe Allaire could be downgraded. Maybe, who knows, maybe one of the City players gets an injury and move on there. So it's very much an exit wildcard, I like to call it. It's a wildcard I can run from. I've got price points there and balance, and I can run from players. It was not
I don't know, because if someone like Aguero, if you decide that you want to get a premium striker in, you're going to really struggle.
Well, then, if I want to get Aguero in, I've already decided, and I think to have Sterling and Aguero and KDB and all these other wonderful players like Luca Dean and Alexander Arnold and things, it's a very unbalanced squad, and the rest of the players aren't going to be so good. In fact, all the players I mentioned, you can't have them all as well. So I just think for me, it's Sterling or Aguero. So if I really, really want Aguero in, well, Sterling's going to have to make way, and Sterling will become a midfielder. There's plenty of great midfielders at the moment. James at Manchester United is another player I've been considering as well, nice and cheap as well. The Bournemouth midfield, Harry Wilson keeps going. Bournemouth have got great fixtures coming up. Is he being overlooked as well? Lots of bargains there as well. So I think if I wanted Aguero, I can make those moves down. But at the moment, I don't really want Aguero. So yeah, you're not
impressed.
You're not happy.
Nah,
That's
not impressed.
I take that as a good sign.
Yeah, you're probably right.
That's a good sign. Let's move on to Neil's team. So no wild card for you, Neil. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at your bus team. Yeah, tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, well, I kind of approve of your wildcard, Joe, because you're basically copying my team with a few exceptions. Yeah. So yeah, I've definitely got some issues to address. I think as I mentioned in the introduction. My initial plan was to make 2 transfers for a hit, which would be Lamella and Andoni out for probably McGinn and Barnes. But I wonder if that is necessary this week, because on paper that doesn't look like a terrible team, and I wonder if it's worth taking hits for that. I mean, my problem is Lamella. You can't guarantee game time with him, even if he starts, as happened in the North London derby. He's going to be taken off. And do I want to play Pookie at home to Manchester City? So those are my 2 choices I need to think on by the end of the week. I'm going to wait for the press conference to see what happens. If there's more injuries occurring, then it might force my hand. But yeah, it'll either be no transfers or it'll be the 2 I've just mentioned. Or I might get rid of Digne, Zinchenko and Alexander-Arnold and get in me, Tarkowski and Peters.
Wow.
Burnley triple up in defence.
Don't you get in Peters? You're not allowed.
But yeah, I think pretty set really. I think that back 4 I'm quite happy playing with this weekend. And yeah, whether it be no transfers or 2, I'll make those transfers whether it be this week or next.
I just want to remind people who are listening to the podcast version, don't have the benefit of seeing the lovely visuals on the video version as well. So for Neil has got Heaton in goal, Luca Dean, Zinchenko, Alexander-Arnold and Lundstram at the back, and he's got a 4-5-1. He's got De Bruyne, Sterling captaining, Salah not captaining, it's De Bruyne who getting the vice captain here, Mount and Lamella, and then Pookie, and then those other changes that he was talking about there. Az, what about your team?
Yeah, so the biggest omission to my team is I don't have De Bruyne, and I'm terrified of not having De Bruyne. The trouble is that I watched the Everton Wolves game last week, week before last, and I thought, right, this is Sigurdsson's last chance. Got to see how he does against Wolves, because I thought, he's now got in Keane up front. He's got Iwobi. This is the team I want to see him in. And the trouble was, he played really well, yeah. and I was really impressed. And I was all set to sell him before that match. And now he's got Bournemouth, and I'm just reluctant to get rid of him, because it would have to be for a hit. So I'm probably gonna get De Bruyne, because I just, that Norwich. If it wasn't Norwich, if it was like Newcastle or Palace or someone who I think could put up a fight, I would consider going without him again. But it's Norwich. They've got no defence. Their entire defence is, they're only fit. Was it the right back? Aarons is injured.
Yeah.
they've got
Dean Smith will be a centre back at this rate.
I know. And then when you take into account price rises and things, and if I don't move for De Bruyne this week, he's probably going to go up another 0.1, 0.2 before I get him. It just feels like he's starting to get too pricey, So I could do Sigurdsson and Van Dijk to Matip and De Bruyne. Matip obviously a bit of a rotation risk, but it looks like he's played his way into the Liverpool defence now. So I think in the short term at least, he's not that big of a risk until Gomez can sort of find his feet again. So that would be my hit, or I might just leave it and do it next week. But I'm leaning towards Sigurdsson, Van Dijk, to Matip and De Bruyne, because it's tough. I just don't want to be without De Bruyne, and I just think for 4 points, the benefits kind of, because if Sigurdsson does well, no one's got him anyway, so who cares? Whereas if De Bruyne does well again and I haven't got him, then it's going to really hurt. So I'll probably do that.
I'm just going to go through your team again for the benefit of those listening on the podcast. You've got Pope, Alexander-Arnold, Van Dijk, Zinchenko, O'Connell, and then you've got 5 in midfield: Salah, Sterling captain, Sigurdsson, Mount, Thabayo, and then up front just Allah on his own. And just to recap my wildcard team, just once again for the benefit of those who don't have the lovely visuals, they're listening to it, the ear test as it were. I've gone for Pope in goal with Henderson as my backup, Alexander-Arnold, Luca Dean, Otamendi and Lundstram. I've also got Salah, Sterling, De Bruyne, Mount, Pookie, Allaire, and on my bench, Campwell, who is a fifth midfielder, Greenwood and Sionyu there to make up the numbers there. So just to go through those as well for people. Now, I just wanted to point out as well that this is the 300th edition of the show. So this has been going for, I don't even know in terms of years, but it's forever. It's almost been going, and it's changed a lot over the years. But I just wanted to mention a behind the scenes star that sadly passed away last week, and it's my dog Arthur. When I used to listen to the Scoutcast back when Mark and Granville hosted and it was podcast only, I did that while walking my dog Arthur, and so for me the image of walking Arthur is very much synonymous with listening to Mark and Granville, and also now listening to other podcasts as well. Obviously I don't listen to myself. He went missing a few years back, and when I started doing the show, and regular listeners do so, it actually helped me track him down, actually in a track near a nearby village.
That is unbelievable.
It's incredible how we knew that. So Scoutcast helped me find my dog as well. And also listeners and viewers from time to time will have heard a dog bark occasionally on the show over the years. Well, that was Arthur as well. So he was 12 years old, but now the rescue centre where we got him as a puppy needs help, and if anyone fancies helping, it's the Heaven's Gate Rescue Centre in Somerset. I'll put a link up to the crowdfunder page that's been set up there, so do have a look at that, and on the video version do kind of pause it and have a look, and also I'll put a link into the podcast information too, so people can help out there. And also just finally, as I do with all of these podcasts and videos, a reminder about the members area. So we've gone in about expected stats and all the data around that as well. I think people should have a look at the members area and understand what we're talking about there. And they could be like Az and just largely reject it, or me dip a toe into the expected stats occasionally, or like Neale pour himself a big bath of them and immerse himself in expected stats 24/7. I'm overdoing it, Neale. You don't do that at all. But for now, it's a goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye all.